Sidney's a very intense person, and what I loved about Sidney is very simpatico to music, you know, and very understand. I'll tell you a very interesting story about Sidney. In 1986, he called me to do a movie to score a movie. No, going back before that, after we did Danger for a while, he was going to do a movie for Paramount, I believe, with Sophia Loren and Tab Hunter called That Kind of Woman, and he wanted me to score it. I was thrilled. It was great, you know. Now, in those days, Sidney was not he didn't have the power that he has later. But he did get it. He had his way about it was going to be shot in New York City. I don't know what the locale was or where the locale could be, but it was going to be shot in New York City. So I went to the set, met Sophia Loren, and I was thrilled. And then he came up to me with the bad news that he had gotten everything he wanted, but Paramount was adamant about scoring the picture in California, L.A. Well, I was very busy doing all my other. I was doing the Como show, Sing Along with Mitch, all the shows and recordings. I was very busy in New York. 2, I was chicken about flying. I didn't think it would take too long to go out by train. And see, I would have to be working out there with new musicians that, I mean, not that they're the greatest musicians in the world out there, but I was so thinking I was going to score it in New York with people that I've worked with all my life, you know. So I turned it down. And turned down a chance to score a movie for Sophia Loren. Anyway, many years later, in 1986, I got a call from Sidney. He said, Tony, he said, hey, blah, blah, blah. We talked a bit. He said, I'll give you another shot. He said, I'm doing a picture. I'm very interested in talking to you about it. Fine. So I went, New York. I met Sidney, and it was Running on Empty. And the reason Sidney thought about it, are you familiar with the picture? You are. The reason Sidney thought about me was because that era, the 60s era, was all about that rebellious movement. The days of the Bob Dylan music and the Joan Baez and the people, the young people voicing the opposition to the war and protesting this and protesting that. And it's a story about a couple who are on the run because they got involved with bombing a factory that makes napalm or whatever. And so they're raising 2 young boys on the run. They're on the run. They're being hounded. And she comes from a very wealthy Park Avenue family. And she studied piano. She went to Juilliard. And her young son, her oldest son, River Phoenix, she took her piano keyboard with her, taught him how to play the piano. And he becomes a fine pianist, gets a chance to go to Juilliard. Anyway, rent the movie and see the movie. It's a great movie. The reason Sidney thought about me is he thought of the guitar, and he thought it would be great. So what I did was also, the music of that era was harmonica. So I just basically used harmonica and guitar, 2 guitars, a piano, and a string quartet for the classical things we were doing, for the Juilliard aspect of it. But here's the point that I was trying to bring out here. When my first meeting with Sidney, Sidney says, I remember back in the 60s, you did a thing for Danger, and he says something, dum, dum, da, da, da. Well, I think he's singing me a theme that I had done on the show about a young boy also, a young boy in a museum who witnesses a holdup in the museum, and the perpetrator is trying to get the kid to cover for him, and he's going to promise he's going to be his surrogate father. But anyway, beside the point, that he would retain that melody in his head. And that's the melody I expanded on and used in Running on Empty. That's why I say when he has a thing about music, you know, he's a director, his feeling, and he is so emotional, and so he's got heart, you know. I mean, he's a fabulous director.